Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we are back for the big transition episode. This is where we finally shift gears from football's coming soon to, hey, football's like next week. College week 0 was this past Saturday. I watched quite a bit of Iowa State and Kansas State in Dublin, which I don't know why they do that, but Rocco Becht.
Money.
Oh yeah.
Money.
No, I mean, why they play it in Dublin?
Money.
Oh yeah, for who?
Yeah. Dublin.
Yeah.
They sell out the stadium. And remember, it's not just because somebody texted me during the game, well, why don't we go, like a school like Florida go? How do Iowa State and Kansas State have enough people to come over? And I'm like, it's not for the fan bases and the alumni of those two schools. It's everybody over in Europe. Grump, you and I went to the Giant Packer game in London, and we saw so many people that were not just Giant fans coming from North Jersey. It's all over Europe. They want to watch American football. It's their one chance. So, it's great if, Iowa State fans come over, or like Florida State or Georgia Tech last year, but it's for expats and fans from Europe to go over, and it's a packed house.
Yeah. I just mean in general. It's like it always seems to be that like the field sucks, and the field did suck, but it was a boring start but an exciting finish. So, but it was just this reminder. It's like, hey, these are big schools. This is a big deal. This is today.
That was a conference game too. It wasn't even like a game where it's just two schools that are randomly set up like in a week 0 game, or at the Georgia Dome. That's a conference game for both.
Oh yeah, yeah. Both ranked teams going into the season too, which means nothing, but it doesn't. I'm sorry, it doesn't mean as much as it sounds like it means, but it doesn't mean nothing. They're two highly thought of programs at the moment.
Remember last year at the same game, Florida State was 10th ranked going into it and ended up with 2 wins.
Yes.
So I had to throw my Florida State dig in there. So.
Yeah, I get it, but it's not the point.
Right.
The point is that these were not nothing teams, and they're not nothing rosters right now.
They're in a Power 4 conference. They're legitimate teams.
Sure. So this is it. This is where all of our projection and all of our hypotheticals become reality, and we can stop thinking about like maybe this, maybe that. It's like, no, the Giants are good, or yes, the Giants are bad. It's it's one of the two. We're gonna start seeing this stuff. And so you were there. You were there for the final preseason game against the Patriots. You got to see a legendary performance from Tommy DeVito, possibly his last in a Giants uniform. We're not sure yet. You got to see some Jackson Dart in person again. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the stadium, the vibe, how filled out it was?
Sure.
What'd you think?
Well, the first thing, in full disclosure, I saw very little of the Tommy DeVito experience because we left early fourth quarter. So I was kind of done. And,
well, didn't he play the whole second half though?
No. Jameis played a little bit in the second half before DeVito came in.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. But the first thing, is we got there, and right up till almost the national anthem, the place was pretty empty. I was pretty shocked. I looked over to our normal row of our normal 124 crew, and there was nobody there. I did have a nice dinner with them last night. That's one of our official kickoffs to the football season, is getting to see, Bruce and Ron and Gary and all the wives. So that was a great time. So shout out to all you guys. But nobody cares about preseason, really. The regulars, nobody in our normal section was there, but it slowly filled in. By the time we got to the second quarter, I'd say it was probably anywhere from a half to 3/4 filled, which I thought was kind of impressive. The crowd, it's an interesting crowd because
crappy weather though, right?
No, it's gorgeous.
Oh, I thought it was like raining all week, and it was like kind of chilly that night.
No, it was gorgeous. That's why we went. It was the morning was a little questionable, but it was nice. It was just a nice. Oh, I can't believe this is mid-August weather for New York City, or Jersey. So that was really nice to be out and sit out for a couple hours and just watch a sporting event where you don't care who wins or loses. Just go watch, observe, take in the atmosphere. So the crowd it's one of those crowds where you never see the wave in a real game, but people that never get to go to a game like this. So the crowd is different. So they were more excited for a preseason game than people probably should, but they're having a good time. They when Dart came on the field the first time they announced his name, the place went nuts. Like they know that's the future, and I think that's a very important thing for this team and this fan base that for the last couple of years felt like we've been stuck in the mud. Even with Daniel Jones, there was a feeling of inevitability. Like at some point he's going away. But this is okay. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. And now I've been hearing about him. And maybe I watched some film. Maybe I watched the bowl game with him. I watched the draft. I've heard reports. Now I can actually see him out there. And I thought he put on a little bit of a show. I thought he was, he looks like a quarterback that you can see the potential that he can make plays. And that's what you want in a quarterback. Somebody who can, not make mistakes, but also can turn nothing or turn an average into something special. And I think he showed a couple things like that. He was able to get out of a little trouble and run up a little bit, or, he changes his arm angle on a throw or two. The touchdown was beautiful that he threw. So I definitely think, having him in, and the fans getting to see with their own eyes, watching him in person, I think got people, not so much for this game, obviously, but okay, I feel good about the direction we're going with this guy, at some point either later this year or going forward. When the last play he played and he ran off and get the concussion, there was a little bit of a murmur. I was just kind of like doing one of these things because, God forbid they ever show a replay in that stadium of anything of relevance or anything that's not, propaganda for the Giants. But, it allowed Jameis to come in to do his one good Jameis moment. And, the fans love Jameis. I sat there stone faced when he threw the touchdown. I'm never cheering for the guy ever. That's well documented, but the fans love him. The fans, he's an infectious guy. And then, when Tommy DeVito came in, it was kind of a special moment, for a guy who's going to go down in Giant history as, he's not going to be up there with Sims or Eli or White Tittle or, but he's always going to have that special place in your heart. And it was a nice ovation he got. He looked decent, for playing enough to, it was like if it's his final go around with this team, it was a nice send off for him. So, the biggest thing for this preseason for me, the two main takeaways from it, thinking about it in the context of this game was, for the preseason, I was happy that the starters played some more reps than I expected them to. I was hoping to get, they would get some game time reps. There wasn't so much in this game, obviously, but the other two. And also the main fact that nobody of any significance really got hurt during any of these games that are going to play a real part in the season going forward. So we came off relatively unscathed from these three preseason games. And now that we have, what do we have? Over 10 days before the first game, more than that, right? We have 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks. 2 weeks. What is today? Sunday? It's 2 weeks.
Yeah, they don't play next Sunday. They don't play. We play the Sunday after. So, whatever bumps and bruises they had from playing in this game or from training camp as a whole, those little things should be cleaned up, and everybody should be close to healthy as we start up against Washington.
Yeah. So a couple things in here. Nobody of any real significance. You're right. Really important note, I would say, is that those two things together, what you said. Number one, nobody really got hurt, but the starters did get a lot more playing time and a lot more action in this training camp in this summer than in prior years. Or at least that's what it feels like. I'd have to go back and check, but it's been one of those things that I've been bitching about for a while, with few exceptions being like Dexter Lawrence, Malik Neighbors, and Andrew Thomas. Two of those guys are legitimately coming back from injury. One of those guys has a different injury every couple of weeks that we don't really know anything about, and then it goes away, and he's perfectly fine, and he's Superman. So I think Malik Neighbors' injury is like 90% star treatment and 10% like some kind of, my foot is kind of hurting me. It's like, all right, well, you don't need to show us anything more, so it's okay. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong move. I'm just saying I'm not concerned really with Malik Neighbors' like injury. So, I think that's an important distinction, right? Because you don't play your starters a lot of the times in summer because you're so paranoid about injuries. And what'd you do? You moved around a little bit. All right.
Sorry.
You're so concerned about them getting hurt, right? And then all you've really done is soften them up for week 1, and then they just get hurt in the real action, and then they're out for even more time. Whereas if they got hurt in early August, you can put them in bubble wrap, put them on ice, and then they're ready by the end of August or something like that. And here we had really nobody of any. I mean, the injuries that we saw develop where people like Cam Scadaboo had like a minor hamstring thing. He did end up playing in this game. They pulled him out after the first drive, but he showed that he could survive. Whatever his hamstring or groin or whatever the hell it was.
Hammy.
Yeah. And Deontay Banks, Cordell Flott, those guys have both been nursing injuries back and forth. I feel like I say this every time. The wide receiver and corner positions, they always have like some level of soft tissue injury at some point in the year. It's like so rare that guys like that go through all 17 games without something. So yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that the Giants did more work with their starters this summer than typical, and they came out no worse the wear for it. Don't want to leave that conversation without saying really sucks for TJ Moore, a rookie tryout who had done really well, and then he has this shining moment in a preseason game where he gets a pick 6 on a legitimately not a good decision or a great throw, but like it's not like it was like a Hail Mary that was just like a pop-up. Like that was, he jumped in front of that. He was being a corner, and he just took the beeline right to the end zone, scores a touchdown, and I think it was like 3 minutes later, completely fractures his femur and is in an ambulance on his way to a hospital. So that is a bummer. But you know what? I'll say this for him. Possibly the best pathway for him because he got successful surgery already. Paulson Adebo has come back from a fractured femur last year into this year. So he is now on IR designation. So as we get into the 53-man roster conversation, he's on an IR designation, whereas he could have been waived, injured. Who knows what his fate, or not waived, injured, I'm sorry, just straight up waived, cut. We have no idea what his fate would have been. God works in mysterious ways. I don't know. You never know how this could work.
And that's a brutal injury because I had a roommate who broke his femur. We were skiing, and I knew, I saw him have to go through that. That's not stubbing your toe. That's a big time one. But he already had the surgery and everything, and he'll be on the road to. He'll have a lot better care than my roommate had. That's for sure. That's when we left right after the pick 6. That was kind of okay, it's time to go home.
Yeah, so I thought Tommy DeVito had a stellar performance. I mean, I understand that you're going up against 3s and 4s, but to me, that's where he stands out to me. And I don't want to like overvalue him as a player, but he's better than a lot of teams' third-string quarterbacks, and I think he showed it there. Like, he is very comfortable. He knows what he's doing. He's in command, and maybe he's just comfortable in the offense and whatever, but 17 of 20 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, he looked very good. Very, very good. And again, third-string quarterback, he might be the best third-string quarterback around. I don't know. It's a little tough. Cleveland has like 5 quarterbacks, so...
But remember, he's not a typical third-string quarterback because he's probably had more real game experience than most third-string quarterbacks, in the league combined have had. I mean,
right.
He started how many games in the last 2 years? So, and he's been in this system for quite. Usually, third-string quarterbacks don't hang around that long with the team. So, he has the benefit that most third-stringers don't do. And when we get to our 53-man projection, I got some interesting thoughts about the quarterback position. Part of it is. A little of it is based on, I don't like to overreact on the last thing I saw or even preseason games as an aggregate, but just overall. But I do have some interesting thoughts about the quarterback position.
I want to talk to you about Jalen Hyatt in this game first.
Sure.
You had a tweet for a text for the ages that I actually tweeted out because I was in hysterics over it. That was so fun. I was casually just asking. I was like, on the broadcast, it looks kind of like the place is empty. What's going on with that? And it was like right after his second drop in a row.
Mhm.
And you said it's been filling in. A lot of people wanted to come and see Jalen Hyatt's last game in a Giants uniform. But he had a terrible game, and like this is like we can laugh about this, whatever, but this is bad. This is probably, we'll get into the 53 man roster a little bit later, but this is probably the Giants' fourth receiver on the depth chart right now. As it stands now, he's probably considered the fourth, maybe the fifth, which, again, that's not a good thing either. The more he tumbles, the worse that looks overall for the organization, the state of the roster, etc. And it's not just the drops, you know what I mean? It's the release. It's his inability to do anything outside of his one little trick, which is be really fast and then be really fast, threatened with deep speed, and then just put your foot in the ground and turn around. These are not huge skills, and usually it comes with the ability to catch the fucking ball, but we're not really seeing that either. So this is a pain in the ass for me.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of thoughts on the wide receiver position also. We'll get to that in a little, but he has reached that status in New York sports where whenever his name is mentioned, whenever the ball is coming to him, or whether he does something, that New York groan comes out of the crowd. And it was definitely a noticeable groan when he was in the game for things that he did. So, I know that fans don't have any say at all, obviously, into roster selection, who starts, really the cost of tea in China, but he is fighting a perception problem that he is useless. And he really didn't do much. The touchdown from Jameis was nice, but one play doesn't really change things when coaches, general managers are watching and they're analyzing every single snap in training camp and every snap in practice and every snap in these games. So, and that's what makes it so frustrating is, he had a nice touchdown catch, but it's like, well, there's nowhere near the sense of consistency we need from a guy like him. Because, on paper and the tools he has, he could be a really nice weapon on this team, but he's just not that guy.
And I think his role this season, as it stands on the team, is that at the very least, what we can count on being an improvement has nothing to do with him. There is some level of, we haven't seen the most of Jalen Hyatt because we weren't able to get the most out of him with the quarterback room that we had, right? That is at least true to an extent. Whereas if it's on him to drop the ball, right? If you're a defensive back and you get beat deep and Daniel Jones just airmails it, or he has so much air, Tyrod Taylor has so much air underneath it that you can make up the ground and get a pass breakup. And then every other throw, that's like one throw a game, maybe two throws a game that you have to worry about that, where, oh shit, I got beat deep. Jalen Hyatt's really fast, and then the quarterback lets him down, and you get to make a play on the ball, and then everything else is in front of you and underneath, and it's all quick game and short game. It's not much of a threat when Jalen Hyatt walks on the field. But now, I will say, if it's on Jalen Hyatt to drop the ball, where it's like, oh, that was a laser throw, I got beat deep, I couldn't make up the ground, I am so thankful he fucking dropped that ball, is a different mentality as a DB, knowing that next time he may not drop that. You know what I mean? Where now I have to respect the deep speed, and now some things underneath might open up because I have to play further off. That is a minute difference, but it is a difference that I want to acknowledge. And again, it's not to make excuses for Jalen Hyatt. It's just simply that you might be able to get something else just based out of the upgrade in the quarterback room.
I'm not trying to compare him with Malik Neighbors, but Malik Neighbors had the exact same quarterback that Jalen Hyatt has, and I don't think any Giant fan or any NFL executive says that Malik Neighbors has been diminished at all because of the quarterback he's been working with. I think there is some percentage of that I believe in, but it's basically on what you're doing, as doing your job, finishing routes, going to the ball, fighting for ball, all of these things, being in the right place, mental part of the game. And I don't care if it's Tommy DeVito or it's Jackson Dart or it's Russell Wilson or it's Jesus Christ. It's on you as a receiver. So we're gonna get to wide receivers, and I have thoughts on the position. And I'll hold it for there.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not wrong about Jalen Hyatt needing more than just that. I mean, it's the entire route from the release all the way to the catch point. Is just there are so many things that can be improved on, and it doesn't feel like any of them have changed since the day he stepped off of the Tennessee campus. I don't really think any other specific player really. Oh, one player.
Turbo.
Okay, you want to talk about Turbo?
Yeah, I mean, Turbo's a little bit of a one-trick pony, but he's fun to watch. Definitely, there was definitely a little bit of a crackle in the stands watching him run. I have thoughts on the running back room also, so we'll leave it.
So I am curious. So I completely agree that there are three specific cheers in the Giants crowd that I've noticed in the years that we've been going since the new stadium opened up. There is the regular Giants cheer where the Giants do something good that is, hey, we can do this. We're a team, and it's just it's a standard cheer you hear all around the league. Then you have the New York cheer, which is like when a player that consistently lets you down finally does the right thing. It's like typically a Bronx cheer, but I would say it's not quite a Bronx cheer, but it's similar, right? Like when Daniel Jones does something, like Daniel Jones definitely got the Bronx cheer. What the hell are you doing?
I'm having problems with my laptop. I'm trying to. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
But you know what I'm talking about. So like he finally does something and you get the all right, here we go, and like they are cheering, but like they know it's short lived or it's more like a finally, and it's not going to carry over to the next play. There's no momentum behind the cheer. And then there's the exact opposite. It's the guy who, for whatever reason, is just a favorite. And he could, let you down in some moments, but he's just a fan favorite. And they just like his name. They like they live in a moment. Like, and I think that in some regard, like there was some of that with Odell Beckham. I think that there was maybe
DeVito.
Yeah, I definitely think that DeVito is one of those guys, and I think that Dante Miller could absolutely be that guy.
I got another guy in the room, in that same room. Scottaboo is absolutely going to be that.
That was 100% what I was just going to ask you. So he got the first handoff and sort of tripped. I think he just got feet tangled with a lineman. I'm not entirely sure, but it looked like he just face planted. But I mean, was there like a bit of a murmur in the crowd when he got the handoff?
Oh yeah, because I think half the people that were there didn't even realize he was going to play.
Mm-hmm. I certainly didn't. Yeah,
I didn't either, because I looked at Cranky wife. I'm like, she's like, that was Scottaboo. I'm like, he's not playing. In fact, we were on the train on the way over. I'm like, well, Scottaboo is not playing. A lot of the starters aren't going to play. I specifically called him out, and all of a sudden he's like, he gets a carry, and she's like, that was Scottaboo. I'm like, no, he's not playing? She's like, yeah. I'm like, holy shit, he is playing. So, yeah, he definitely, again, his kind of backstory and his legend is preceded him coming here. They've seen the tape, they've heard the stories of him trucking people, him being an animal and all this stuff. So fans get excited about the backstory, and then when they see him in person, it's just that release of, there he is. That's going to be our guy. What are the biggest highlights we always see on the scoreboards when they show old film of Giant fans?
It's Mark Bavaro.
It's Joe Lunchpail fan who just loves seeing defense run the ball. Bavaro, running backs just running over people, that Lunchpail mentality. And this could be a guy that kind of fits that mentality of what Giant fans remember and ultimately would like to fancy themselves to be.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so that did follow through. All right, so any further thoughts on the game? Did you have a good time?
Oh, sure. I mean, again, I've the number of preseason games I've been to in the 26 years I've been back in New York, I can put in one hand. So it was just one of those, it's a Thursday, like, hey, you want to go? I didn't sell these tickets. You want to, let's take a drive to Jersey and go watch the game. And it was a nice weather, and it felt good. it felt good to just watch football again. It's been a long time since I've been in a stadium. It's been since the bowl game on January 2nd or whenever that was. Um, you know, in preseason, everybody thinks they're going to the Super Bowl or think they're going to have a good year. I think this is the year turning. So there was a good vibe in the stadium, which we haven't felt in a long, long time. Like even the Green Bay game when DeVito won that game, that was kind of like, well, this is cool, but come on, we're not building anything off of this. There was a little bit of a sense, and again, a lot of it's people that aren't normally going to giant games, but of like, we just kicked some team's ass. We're kicking this team's ass, and I know you can see the uniform that they're playing against. It's the Patriots. It's always a New York Boston thing, whether it's a preseason. So it was a feel good. Nobody serious was playing, so nobody would get hurt. You don't care about who wins or loses. This is not affecting the wild card situation. It's not affecting draft picks. It was just enjoy football on a nice night and take a breath because we have 2 weeks before it starts for real, and then you know we let the chips fall where they may after that.
All right, so let's get into what came of this. Which, by the way, yeah, you're right. One of the cool things about this preseason is not that they've won every game; it's that they've really looked like they did well in every game. When the starters played against the starters of the other team, they did well. When the backups played against the backups, they still did well. When the third stringers came in for both teams, they still did well. So the score doesn't matter, but like it kind of does. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if you're,
Vibes matter.
yeah. Yeah, I would say eye test. I don't really. I'm going to say this as like a disclaimer. This isn't directed at you for saying that right now, but I'm about sick of hearing the words vibes, aura, and moxie in the last like 4 weeks. I'm tired of hearing Jackson Dart being described in the word moxie throwing up. Just shut up and tell me. Just say a football word for fuck's sake. Just say something about football. I'm sick of hearing moxie. I'm sick of hearing drip, aura. Just fucking tell me how he looks throwing the fucking ball. Oh, sorry. I had to get that off my chest.
I've made a personal thing for myself that I'm not going to be destroying announcers anymore. I've already said my piece of how I feel about play-by-play announcers in the 2020s now. But the one question I do want to ask you is because I did not watch it was on Amazon, the game. And this is the first time we have been on a broadcast that was not the state-run propaganda of Bob Papa and Carl Banks. This was neutral announcers.
It was Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit.
Oh, okay. So what was their kind of take on, and again, a very limited amount of Giants who played on Thursday are actually going to be on the field when we start in 2.5 weeks. But what was their take on this Giant team of what they saw? Are they just like, oh, we got to get through this game because this team is shitty and we'll never hear from them again? Or
I mean, they were optimistic. They had a lot to say about Jackson Dart. Herbstreit coming from college, I think, is a really good addition to doing one game a week in the NFL. I think that's awesome because he'll always be able to bring that shit over. And I personally like it. I don't know if anybody else does.
He catches a lot of grief for I think because people. Remember, you're so biased in college when you're watching. Everybody assumes, oh, he's an Ohio State homer. I don't like him. But he's actually become a really good announcer. And I think he's a really good big game announcer from a color commentator. I think Chris Fowler is a tool. And I think he brings the broadcast down severely. But I think Herbstreit, he has to know now, besides, 50 legitimate, college football teams, he has to know the NFL now too. And I think he does a pretty good job. And to your point, he brings that I know these guys from college perspective that a lot of these NFL announcers don't have.
Yeah, but I think that also guys who do that, right, who talk about college players, they have that ability to explain very well what should have been done. The way that Chris Collinsworth does, he's like the anomaly where he's like the one. Right, or I guess like Tony Romo sometimes too, where they can tell you the ins and outs of I know that looks like that was a drop, but the quarterback didn't do him any favors. He really should be going here, and or vice versa. Right. The wide receiver released to the outside, and he didn't give the quarterback any room to work with and stuff like that.
Guys.
Yeah, and they're very good at it. And I think coming from college, it's good to do. It's easier for those guys to do that because in college you see a lot of that kind of shit where whatever. So I think that he was pretty optimistic. I think on the Giants team they were talking quite a bit about, they would switch to the Patriots. They talked about the culture change with Vrabel, so that was a big talking point. Al Michaels was pretty trying to think. They had a whole lowlight reel of Evan Neal. Like they cut up like 6 plays of his on only one that looked good, and Herb Street was not pulling any punches.
Well, I mean, that is a storyline, and something I don't want to hear from the propaganda machine telling me something that my eyes don't tell me. If they spliced up video and you saw, it's important, and that's good. That's what we need, and that's where you want to, the NFL with their broadcast, because they're all national broadcasts. You don't have these homers doing games like you do on the radio or on the preseason games or like in baseball or basketball. So that's good. That's what we want. We want, tell me what my eyes are telling me. Don't blow smoke up my backside.
Yeah. So that was pretty much it. It was a good broadcast, I thought. Al Michaels hates the Hawkeye technology. Yeah, I'm sure you're not surprised at all.
They got to find a way to speed up, because as we're recording this, I have the U.S. Open on in the background. And when the ball goes out and they have to go to the Hawkeye similar thing, it takes about 3 seconds, and they know.
Yeah, I think it's because it's new and they're using the preseason as a chance to just do it all the time. And like anytime it's remotely close, they're doing it to try and like get the process right. In the Giants game specifically, he was like a yard past it. So I think there was extra delay because it was like, wait, are we really doing this right now? Like, all right, I wasn't prepared to click all the buttons it was very stupid.
And let's remember one thing as this Hawkeye thing happens during a game. The purpose of Hawkeye is not to make the game faster. The purpose of it is to get the call right. So, I was doing it myself. Like,
are you sure though? Isn't it? No, isn't it though? Because it's not to spot the ball. It's to replace the chain gang running over from the sideline.
Because the chain gang is not completely accurate. And
well, that's true.
Like this and all that too. So I think the technology will get better. Like with everything, technology gets better. And I think the latency between the stop of play, the call for it, and to do it will be faster. But that's not the goal. The goal is not to speed up the game by a little bit, because, it takes time for these old men to run across the field and do this and spot the ball and blah, 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 blah. It's still kind of slow. The purpose is accuracy. And, this is a game of inches. We decided we wanted gambling in this, and, millions and millions and millions of dollars on every play and every game. It's got to be right. Everything has to be right as much as you can. So just remember that if you're like, God damn, it's taking a while. This is stupid. This is taking a while. The goal is to get things right. Yeah,
okay. I was just trying to make the distinction that the Hawkeye technology is not spotting the ball, though. So, I mean, that is a distinction that people don't understand, is that, the officials, the official is still spotting it. And the reason why is because in a pile, you can't reconcile when the knee is down with the chip in the ball. There's still that extra element of when is he down, and that's still a human element.
There was some broadcast, I don't remember which one it was, but they said the chip in the ball is not for measurements or spotting ball. The chip is for next gen stats and different things like that. The Hawkeye technology is not based on a chip where the ball is. It's where the actual lines are of, is it a first down or not? So it's not relying on a chip in the ball. The chip is for something else.
All right. So following this game where the Giants won 42-10, the team has announced since then, because that was Thursday, 9 cuts and 1 other roster move. So they have already cut wide receivers Montrell Washington, Zach Pascal, Jordan Bly, offensive lineman Jimmy Morrissey, and Jameson Williams, I think is his name. Jason Williams. I'm sorry. It's just spelled. It's spelled strange. Deontay Johnson, KJ Cloyd, linebackers, O'Donnell Fortune, and TJ Moore. No, TJ Moore has moved to IR.
He's on IR.
And then defensive back Kayvon Wallace has been announced as cut. So those moves have already been made. So there are still some corresponding moves to go. So how do you want to just go through this position by position, starting on offense?
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't you start with, because if you listen to, and you should listen to, the Giants Nation pod with Grump and Bobby, they already did a really good job at this. So I don't want to be exact replica of that. I want to take your your comments on who you had, and I'll kind of bounce off what I did. We can kind of have a conversation about each one of these.
Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely listen to that. And that one, the object of that was to be predictive. Was not a what would you do? I mean, we did sort of discuss that, but the ultimate picks that we made were what we think the Giants are thinking, and we can only work with what is on the current roster. But we did mention, a couple of outside roster, not specific names, but just positions where we could see some shenanigans happening. Specifically on cutdown day, and then like a day or two later, absorbing players from other teams that have been cut and stuff like that. So I'll just run through what I had for that exercise, and then bounce off what you think, right?
Yep, let's go position by position group. That's perfect. I do have one question for you. I don't know if we want to save it for now or till later in the episode, but well, let's wait to the end. I think it makes more sense. So I have a tease. There'll be a question for you later. So let's get started.
Got me all bothered now.
Oof.
You tease. All right, so quarterbacks. This one. Well, first of all, let me say this. This was in the past several years that we've done this. This was probably the most frustrated I've ever been trying to narrow this shit down. Usually, I'm worried about 2 or 3 guys. I'm like, I could do this, and I'm not really that worried about it. I'm just toiling over it because it's an exercise and I'm trying to do my best at something. This one, I mean, it wasn't 2 or 3. It was like 5 or 6 guys. I'm like, I'm like getting mad because I'm looking at position groups. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, but I feel forced to be doing this. So this was actually a pain in the ass. And there's several positions where we could be having an argument or a conversation. And I don't think the quarterback is immune to that. So I went with 3 quarterbacks, with Russell Wilson starting, Jameis Winston as the backup, Jackson Dart as the future. I have Tommy DeVito being cut. I do think that it's possible that Tommy DeVito clears waivers and returns with the team. I know that we just said that he's better than a lot of teams' third-string quarterbacks. I just don't think that many teams are that worried about their third-string quarterback. And the teams that do have these concerns and worries addressed it by just throwing numbers at the position anyway. Like Cleveland has like 100 quarterbacks. So, this may be Tommy DeVito's last rodeo in a Giants uniform. Maybe he'll be wearing a Jets uniform and staying in New Jersey. Maybe he's somewhere entirely different. I'm not sure, but I don't see him on the 53-man roster. I understand the Jameis Winston. I understand that Jackson Dart has possibly performed well enough that people feel like the organization may be comfortable trading Jameis Winston, and that calls have been made. It's been reported that calls have been made regarding Jameis Winston. I just think, personally, that this organization knows that they've made mistakes. This is a first-year GM, first-time GM. They got success in their first year, and immediately following that first year, they had 2 years worth of bad offseason roster moves, bad coaching decisions. I think that they know that they screwed up, and they did a good job this offseason assembling a future. And that future involves Jameis Winston as an injury buffer. For both this year and next year, they signed him to a sensible 2-year deal on a sensible backup contract. I don't see them trading him away unless they are blown away by an offer that I also just don't see happening. So that's what I went with.
Jane, you ignorant slut. No. I'm going to preface everything I say with I'm going to look at my roster build a little differently than I think most people are doing their roster builds. I am not doing this based on this is my prediction what's happening. I'm doing this based on how I think the general manager and the head coach are feeling about their situation and how they're going about building this roster going forward, not for this year, but setting themselves up for the future. So it's going to be a little quirky, some of the things I talk about, and they're out of the box. And I might be completely wrong and sound like a jackass, but I'm going with this kind of gut. My thought is the second they were given stays of execution this offseason, it wasn't just you have one more year to prove yourself or you're gone. I am going with we are committed to you guys until it is obvious and we need to go in another direction. That's why they were allowed to draft Jackson Dart, allowed to make moves to draft Jackson Dart, and allow them to continue on with the rebuild of this team. Because I know that word vibes you don't want to talk about. People are feeling like a little bit. This team is still in the middle of a rebuild. This is not a like almost anybody thinks this is not a playoff team. This is certainly not a championship caliber team. There's a long way to go to make this roster a championship quality roster. So when we get to quarterback, I completely agree why they signed Jameis Winston for the contract they did, for how long they did, and what the original intent was. Two things I think have happened since then. I think one, I think Jackson Dart might be a little ahead of schedule than they thought. That doesn't mean he's ready to be, the starter, to compete with Russell Wilson at all. But I think it means they may be feeling more comfortable of him potentially being a backup, and also feeling comfortable about what Tommy DeVito can do. That I think they're very seriously going to listen to offers, because I think somebody is going. Jameis Winston is the ultimate siren call in this league, where somebody always falls in love with him, and I think someone will overpay for him. That as we are in the situation of this team, we are still rebuilding. We might be able to get a higher draft pick than we think he's worth, and his value of being a backup, staying on this team in this kind of sandwich role he's in, may not be worth giving up what we could potentially have. So I have on my 46, I have Wilson, Dart, and DeVito staying, and Jameis getting traded.
I don't think that it's. I mean, I don't think you're on Pluto. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. I don't think that Jameis Winston had a preseason here that tells you that he is anything different than what he's always been. I mean, the second preseason. I know that people fall in love with him, but to me, nobody was fighting over the very cheap contract that we gave him. I don't know that there was a whole lot of, negotiations that had to be had to make sure that he wound up in a Giants uniform. And I don't think that he changed any minds since then. I think he still looks like Jameis. He did dumbass shit this game. He did dumbass shit the week before, and he did dumbass shit the week before that. So it's always give and take. Like it's like I don't know. There's probably a gambling analogy in there between winning 10K on one hand and then losing 9.5K on like the 40 subsequent hands after that.
It was called my weekend in Vegas last Thursday night, basically. Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I don't think that you're on Pluto. You know what I mean? All of that makes sense. I just don't think if he had like a preseason where it's like, Russell Wilson checked every box, Jackson Dart checked every box, and Tommy DeVito seemed to check every box in the one opportunity he really truly got. Jameis Winston's the one guy that didn't check every box. All he did was just continue to be Jameis.
Right, but I think the world changed around him. I think there's a team or two that their situation has changed on August 25th as you're listening to us, as opposed to what it was in June or July when Jameis was available. So,
are you talking about Shedeur Sanders running backwards for a quarter of a football field?
Maybe. Or his brother punching people or whatever. Well, the Sanders hate episode will be on later on a different broadcast. But no, I think that I don't think he did anything to improve his stock. I just think that the world out there and the rest of the NFL, someone out there was like, something, I know what I'm getting in Jameis. I mean, they're not looking for a starter. They're not looking someone to take them, to become a championship team. I think someone out there thinks that he is what they need to be, that filler for a team that is a contender but needs somebody for 2 weeks, and I think they will be willing. That's a luxury item that we don't need or can afford at this point. So I think they have the absolute right intention of we're going to get this guy for 2 years in our plan, but I think you have to constantly reevaluate your situation, and I think it's a little bit of an out of the box thought, and it could come back to bite them. If Russell goes down and the season's lost anyway, but we still need to think out of the box ourselves. And if we have the opportunity, again, I wouldn't just trade him just to trade him. I mean, I think someone's going to go. I think someone's going to come in and be like, "Really? Well, we have to do this."
Well, so here's the thing. I don't think you're on Pluto, and the reason why is Carson Wentz and Sam Howell were just kind of moved around today, and those are, I guess they are. They're lesser quarterbacks. So, all right, let's move
Yes.
forward to running backs. I don't think that you're crazy, even though I don't agree with you. That is not an
I
insane take.
No, yeah, and to be fair, and again, I'm thinking this is a different way than most people, so I expect to have some disagreements with you, but I do have DeVito as one of my last four in, because
Okay.
that's how out there this is. But I think it's a possibility.
And for what it's worth, I did toil over it. This was a position that I was like getting annoyed at.
Mhm.
Running back, I went with three, with Tyrone Tracy as our starting running back on week one. Devin Singletary will be the starter when it comes to third down. And then Cam Scadaboo is that rotational guy that's going to have like a package of plays to begin with and then slowly be integrated in. I did let Dante Miller walk. I think that he's just going to make it to the practice squad. I don't think he was so impressive in NFL evaluator and GM eyes the way that he is in fans' eyes. I think that running backs like that happen every single preseason, and I don't think that NFL scouts are that enamored with that. It could be wrong, but it's also he doesn't bring anything to me that I'm going to be like kicking over garbage cans if he gets picked up by another team.
I kept him. I had the four running backs because I don't think they've made their final decision yet. And you may be right that he may be a guy just passed through the practice squad and that's that. But I think they may not have their final decision. I think there's enough interest in him that they may feel that somebody might snatch him up. So I have him as a making the team.
They like him. So
Mm-hmm.
he is oftentimes incorrectly identified as an undrafted free agent last year. He was not an undrafted free agent last year. He signed as a free agent before the draft happened because of eligibility issues. There is a difference, meaning that
That's correct.
he's not undrafted like he was passed over the way undrafted free agents are. He was literally a free agent, and the Giants threw 2 years worth of money at him. They did, like undrafted free agents, the ones that like can, negotiate for higher salaries. They don't make what he made. So that caught my eye, and I was like, oh my God. And for what it's worth, they were trying to give him special team snaps to find a way to get him on this roster. Here's the problem. In this game, the ball hit him in the ass. Fumble. It led to, the only 3 points the Patriots had for like 3/4 of this game. That was his special team snaps. So I don't think that he showed enough to make it. But again, it is clear to me that they like him a lot and they want him on the roster. And they have shoehorned running backs onto rosters that they don't belong on, to my chagrin, over the past couple years with Eric Gray.
He is another one of my last four in.
I don't think that tight end is any easier. So in this regard, I went with four. I have Daniel Bellinger as the starter, Theo Johnson as the future, Chris Manhertz as the blocking tight end, and I went with Greg Dulcich. This is one of my last ones in over Thomas Fidone, and the reason why is I just don't think that anyone really is fighting over Fidone, and right now, because of the receiver group that we'll talk about in a little bit, Greg Dulcich brings something that the team probably needs, and it's a big body with speed. That was what I went with.
I had four, but I had Bellinger out, and I had Fidone and Dulcich both in. I think that this is an opportunity to, we're still rebuilding a little bit. I think there's any chance you can shave a little money off, and you can correct me if I'm completely wrong on the cap story with Bellinger. But I think this is a spot where you can, you start both of these on the roster and you see what happens.
I'm going to look up the exact number right now, but you are not wrong. I believe they save a couple million if they were to cut him. My only thing with cutting, and I could see him moving on, or something. Like this is not a thing where you're from Pluto because we disagree on this one. This is a totally understandable pick.
And this goes back to my, I think at the top line theorem that this,
is their headspace.
GM, head coaches, is that I don't have to win this. My job is not on the line in 2025. I have been given a little more of a leash that I can keep building this team. I don't have to, force feed guys in to try to win right now. So that's what some of these decisions in my head were with some of these moves.
So what you're saying would not totally shock me. They do need money, and cutting him would save $3.5 million. So it's not a ton, but it is a lot when it comes to accounting and getting your
I
finances
got to
in
sign
order to
someone in
have.
week 9. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where that money comes in.
My only thing is Daniel Bellinger is the most complete tight end they have on the roster right now. Theo Johnson is still, in my opinion, a project. He has been not perfectly healthy this offseason for him to develop beyond that. Oh, that's why. I'm sorry. Let me fix this while we're talking here. There we go. Now you can move around a lot more. I forgot to do stuff to your screen grab there. You were super zoomed in on your face. That's my fault. Anyway, I'm tired. I apologize. It's Sunday. It's Sunday, all right?
I feel bad for all of you who are zoomed in on my face, by the way.
So yeah, right now he's the guy who's the most all around tight end that they have, which is why I went with him. But I don't think that you're crazy. Moving into wide receivers, again, another tough spot. I went with 6. Your starters of Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Those guys are roster locks. No arguments there. And then the next 3 are not good players. I mean, Jalen Hyatt, I have as number 4. If he's the first guy up when someone gets hurt, we're in serious trouble. And I don't think that he is. I think that would be Bo Collins. If it's an outside receiver, I think that they think that he is someone that can develop quickly and has already shown that he went from undrafted free agent status to getting starter reps when people were injured, like Malik Neighbors, throughout this summer. So they think that he can learn quickly and contribute early while developing over the long term, I think is what they currently think. And then I went with Gunnar Olszewski because I don't know. I just think that they like him more than Amir Smith-Marset, who was benched kind of in the second preseason game and did not appear too happy about it. To me, you could flip a coin. I don't care one way or another. They are returners first and receivers second. As far as receivers go, they would probably be the slot receiver backup if Wan'Dale Robinson gets hurt. And if that's the case, again, we're in trouble. If either one of them is playing receiver, I just think that they like Gunnar more than they like Smith-Marset. And I went with those 6. My honest thought, though, is that there's a serious lack of size and physicality in the group. I think that if any of the starting 3 are not able to go, we're in trouble. And I think that some other team somewhere is cutting a better receiver than some of the guys I just mentioned. And I got to tell you, I'm not going to be shocked if Jalen Hyatt is not a Giant by week 1 or like week 3 or something like that.
All right, you kind of stole a little bit of my thunder here, and I have a logic for my decisions too. I have Neighbors, Wan'Dale, Slayton, Bo Collins, and I have both Smith-Marset and Olszewski. I have Hyatt out. I think that this team is trying to, wherever they can, start cutting dead wood. And some guys, they can't for financial reasons, and some they can. And I just think that, and that's not just on what happened on Thursday night, but I just think Jalen Hyatt does not really bring much of anything to the table. And it's a wasted roster spot, I think. I have the other 2 guys who are the kind of like those, receiver, but really returner guys. Because I think right now, they can do multiple things. And for right now, I want multiple guys with the number of roster spots I have. I'm almost 100% convinced that there will be somebody else in that wide receiver room when we kick off at Washington. So this is a kind of an August 25th. This is where we are. Those 2 are together as a placeholder. I think one of those 2 will be gone when we start the season with somebody coming in, either a cut down day guy, or even somehow like a trade or something. Because you're right, that wide receiver room is, we have one elite guy, we have one guy that seems to overachieve every year, we have one guy that just catches the ball at 4 yards away, and then we have a bunch of oh boy, and that's not going to make it in this league. I don't care if it's Russell Wilson, or if we do get Jesus Christ to come over, we need somebody else. And we were not dealt the greatest hand to start with for this camp. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an issue with the starters. It's just everybody else.
I
was toiling with finding a way to get Lil Jordan Humphrey in there because I think he brings a size element that's otherwise lacking, and a physical element that I think is otherwise lacking. But again, all of this is sort of moot when you consider it's probably just better off going to be someone from another roster.
I think there's two position groups we're going to talk about where I think one of the big they're going to have to go outside and get somebody for, and wide receiver to me is one of them.
Last offensive position, and again, this one I toiled over. Offensive line, I went with 10. And this is interesting because we wound up with the same position group numbers, and this was a wacky one this year. So it's starting 5 with Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminator. Then you have the two backups. James Hudson got the money. He's not going anywhere. Marcus Bowe is the draft pick who has looked the part by far. He's not going anywhere. And then I have 3 guys where I was just sort of like angry. I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I think Evan Neal is they're just stuck. They're just stuck with him. I think that they hoped that by moving him to guard, he would show enough promise on tape for the NFL that they could trade him for peanuts, just anything. And I don't think that he did well, and no one cares. So I think they're just stuck with him. And then I have them keeping Austin Schlottman so that they have a backup center. Although the backup center could very well just be Greg Van Roten. So, not necessarily needed. And then I have them keeping Josh Azudu, but it could be a coin flip with Aaron Stinney. I thought they both look good at guard. I just went with Azudu because he's more flexible than Aaron Stinney. What'd you do?
I have the same 5 starters. I have Marcus Bowe. I have Hudson also. I have Josh Azudu staying as the third of my last 4s in. They like him. He should. There's a lot of things we thought he'd be gone last year or something, but he's still here. So I think they like him. And I have Stinney also. I have Evan Neal getting cut. And before everybody says I'm crazy, numbers. If you don't want somebody, you can cut bait. I mean, how much did Cleveland have to spend in dead cap to get rid of Deshaun Watson? Millions.
Yeah, did they?
What was the dead cap hit on that? Was it like?
It was a lot. It was a ton.
Yeah, I think if sometimes you just have to grin and bear it, and just the guy, he was a busted. They tried as much as they can with him. They've moved him over. Maybe not fair to Evan Neal, but did anything really show you? You watch more film than I do. That said, this guy he may not have it right now, but can potentially be that guy, even to be a legitimate backup guard. Did you have any hope for him?
Not really. I mean, like, I will cede the point that he has just moved inside, and that he could get better at the position the more he plays it. But, there's some running plays. It's just when he is in good position and squared up, yes, he can anchor down, and yes, in running plays, he can, move people because he's a big guy. The problem is that he continues to have the same issues that he had at tackle. He can't move laterally. He stops his feet. His hands don't continue to work. So, better defensive tackles on the inside, they tend to be better hand fighters because they have the interior quickness, but they don't really have the room to work like a guy on the edge does where he can just run around you. So they are the more experienced hand fighters, in my opinion. And, you had the Jets game. He just smacked his fucking hands right out of the way and went right around him and slammed into Jackson Dart. I just don't. It's the same problems. And the other thing is that, and this never gets brought up with Evan Neal because his time on the field is so bad, he misses a shitload of time. So it's like, if you're thinking that you can develop him like over a long period of time, like, you have to now bet that he's going to be healthy for the first time in his career.
And the third thing too that not people talk about is, what is his attitude going to be? This is a guy that came in that was, he was a top 10 draft pick, failed miserably, got a second lease on life, potentially as a guard, has not made anybody warm and fuzzy at all. At what point does he become a problem in that locker room? I just think if it's time, you cut the cancer out. And I know that's a harsh word to call him a cancer, but from a performance on the field standpoint, he's a cancer. And I just think you just have to take the hit and you just move on. It's a narrative that, we don't need anymore. And I think it's always going to come. I don't know how important narratives are with the media and stuff, but, do you think that, Do you think that Brian Dable wants to hear, Evan Neal questions going forward? Is he going to play this and that? And it's just, it's over. It's just like how I feel about Hyatt. I mean, Hyatt, obviously there's a difference in money, but when it's over, it's over. And I think he's going to be gone. I think it's going to surprise people, but I think he's going to be gone.
I mean, I think that it could happen. We'll have to. They'll have to make like some other financial move to save money if they do it.
Mhm.
For
And
the
I think
record, I'm
that's what
pretty sure
Belichick wants.
Deshaun Watson. I'm pretty sure is still a Cleveland Brown for what it's worth. Were you
I meant
possibly thinking of
before.
Aaron Rodgers?
No, no, I thought before. Who who cut him for the big money? The enormous cap hit. Where was?
He has the enormous cap hit with the Browns, but I don't think that they can. It's so much money. I don't think they can cut him yet. Aaron Rodgers? The Jets took a big cap hit by cutting
They took
Aaron
a big
Rodgers.
cap. I know that.
If that's what you were thinking of, but
I'll come up with it. Who knows? It's late. It's Sunday night.
yeah. All right. So let's flip to the defensive side. We're on an hour already here. We're big yappers tonight.
We're moving. We're moving.
Defensive line. This one, this is where it started getting a little bit easier on the defensive side. Picking positions I thought was a lot easier. I went with 6 guys: Dexter Lawrence, Raheem Nunez, Roaches, and Roy Robertson Harris. I think that those are your starters. It's going to depend on game planning which one of those two between R&R or RRH is next to Dexter Lawrence on snap 1 of the game. But you have those 3. Darius Alexander's a draft pick. He's here. I think Elijah Chapman, I don't think that they're just fucking around with him at fullback. I think that they really would like to do that in certain packages and situations. And also, he does bring something to the defensive tackle group. And I think that they like DJ Davidson, and he's a guy who can be nose tackle when you need him. So that's what I went with, those 6.
Same ones.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think you can talk about Jordan Riley or Corley Durden or Elijah Garcia as guys that flashed, and I think on a shittier Giants team, another one of those guys maybe makes it, but I think that they've made some adjustments that have looked good at the edge position or outside linebacker or whatever you want to call it. 5 guys. I went with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau as your starters. Your third down guy that gets in there is Abdul Carter, obviously. Chauncey Golston is your sort of backup for Kayvon Thibodeau. I think that he's going to be kind of sliding inside at times, staying outside at other times. And I went with one more, and I explained this in great detail on the Giants Nation show, but I went with Trace Ford, and I think that he's going to make the initial 53-man roster, and then he will be cut for a safety that's not on the roster right now. But also, for what it's worth, I thought Trace Ford had a phenomenal preseason, especially that finale against the Patriots. So where did you wind up with all this?
Now we're going chalk because they had the exact same ones.
How about that? Did you have Trace Ford as only temporarily making it, or just being part of the team?
I had him with everybody. It's like on day, the day after cutdown day. This is very fluid. So
Okay.
He should probably be one of my last 4. I didn't have him identified as last 4. Maybe he's last 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they like him for the long term, though. I think that he sort of replaces Tamon Fox as that guy that they keep in the practice squad, can develop and give him a chance next preseason and see maybe he cracks the roster. You know what I mean? Maybe he does something. He definitely has special teams value. I like what I've seen from Trace Ford, and he does have his limitations, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a skill set for the NFL. And also just hanging out there on IR and PUP list or whatever it is, Victor Dimukeje. I think that they hold him in high regard too. So he might get added into the mix at some point later on this year.
Can I go back 1 second? I want to correct myself. It was Deshaun Watson. I thought was, for some reason, I thought immediately when they signed him, there's all of a sudden there was a huge potential dead cap hit. The biggest cap hit, Russell Wilson, is $85 million dead cap hit.
What, with Denver?
So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to move somebody, he's not going to cost obviously $85 million, but they can make it work to get rid of him. So that's my point.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I had forgotten about that. Off-ball linebacker. I went with 4 guys. Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden as your starters. They really like Darius Muasau. I think that they're penciling him as the starter in 2026 and letting go of Bobby Okereke at that time. Chris Board, I think that they like him as a special teams guy. And Demetrius Flanagan fouls. They also brought in for special teams. I think he just winds up on an injured list. He hasn't done shit all summer. Chalk?
Talk.
All right. All right, and then we go to the defensive back room. Here I have six guys. Paulson Adebo, Cordell Flott, and Andrew Phillips. Those are your starting three. Deonte Banks, Trey Hawkins, and Art Green as the backups. Art Green, I thought, and this is tough because there's a lot of things you could do. D. Williams had his moments. Nick Jones had his moments. Corey Black is the draft pick, but I think he winds up on an injured list. I think Art Green probably showed the most consistent average, below average, and special teams value, where D. Williams and Nick Jones were a little too up and down.
That's our first split because I had Jones as my sixth guy.
Yeah, and again, I think you could pick any one of those three for that last spot. I think you could even pick Corey Black. You know what I mean? I'm not sure.
You said so. You expect, let's say, Banks is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's starting? Who's starting in week 1 in your book?
I think that they wanted Deonte Banks to win that job, but they wanted him to win an actual competition. And so they gave him an actual competition, and he just lost. In my opinion, he lost. He had moments where he was not terrible by any means, but the same warts showed up. He has not gotten better at the things he's not very good at, which is, a lack of confidence at the release, where he just lets guys get inside of him very quickly and then can't make up ground. He doesn't turn his head around to play the ball. Cordell Flott, for what it's worth, he had 2 pass breakups against the Patriots, which, you're playing third stringers, but he had a pass breakup against Garrett Wilson. And I think that he's shown in games that he's a gamer. He matches right up to people. He's not afraid at the line of scrimmage. He's had moments where he's pushing A.J. Brown around, and that's a guy who has a whole career of pushing around DBs. I think that Cordell Flott took his opportunity and won it. And, I know Flott is a name that's been around here for forever, but people forget he was an extremely young draft pick. I think he was only like 20 years old. So he's basically the same age as Deonte Banks anyway. So I don't think that matters. He is still a young guy who had a lot of development left in him, and it's just possible that he is slowly developing.
Here's my thought with this, because I think Flott's starting also because, while yes, everybody has a new lease on life, Joe Shane and the coaching staff and everything, but the players know. And I think the players think that Flott is won the battle and probably, I think, is a better teammate too. Banks had some attitude issues, some things he had to be benched last year. And I think just because you're told you're going to get a little longer, you still have run the risk of that ending shorter by things like losing the locker room. And I think this is one of those cases where the better guy has to play, not the guy who was the higher draft pick or the name or who we want to win. It's who earned it. And I think that Flott starting sends a message to everybody. And it also sends a message that this coaching staff is doing the right thing moving forward. So I think it's important from a messaging standpoint as much as who actually is better on the field and who should be starting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, you've set yourself up now as coaches where you've had this open competition. I mean, I'm not in the locker room and I don't see every practice, but from my perspective, it's been a clear victory for Cordell Flott. If you go back on that now and you just give Deonte Banks that job, and there's injuries involved too. Deonte Banks has been a little banged up. Maybe he's healthy, and maybe week 1 Cordell Flott is banged up, and now you have to make an injury decision.
Well, that's a different thing. Yeah,
correct. That's an aside, but I think that you severely weaken yourself when you do that. The other players see that, and you're talking about sending a message. Cutting guys like Jalen Hyatt, or Evan Neal, who were high draft picks, who had they had their shot. And just giving them jobs versus, what? You're not safe. You have to be here and perform. The draft was in March. It's not March anymore. Or whatever, April. It's not April anymore. It's September now. You need to perform. I don't care about what you did in college anymore. That's not relevant.
Yeah. That's why
I agree.
First 4 list has guys like has Hyatt, has Neal, has Bellinger, guys that, they're moving on from. They're high profile names. They're big names. They're guys who maybe feel like they're entitled to, but they're gone because production matters, and we got to get this team away from having a loser mentality and competition. It makes you better. It rises all the boats. It's the tide that rises everything. So I took some real swings on this, but I think it's because of a where I think I'm tapped into what they're thinking, this coaching staff.
Yeah, and you know what? It would be on par with what Brian Dable did in his first year in 2022. So I'm not going to be shocked at all if Cordell Flott is the starter. I think that he won the job, and I think that they're going to honor that.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive backs. I went with 3, and I prefaced this before. So one of my last outs was Raheem Lane, but I went with Tyler Nubin and Javon Holland as your starters, Dane Belton as the backup. I do think that Raheem Lane looked the best. I think that Makari Page had his moments. I think they'll like him on the practice squad. I just think that they are not going to be comfortable with Dane Belton and Raheem Lane back there. I think that there's a very good chance that a better D-back or like a better veteran, a longer in the tooth, a journeyman, safety will be shaken loose by another roster. Yeah, so I don't have them keeping Raheem Lane. I think that they're almost certainly going to add a body in that room, and that's where the Trace Ford thing comes in there, later on. So
I had, before he was cut, Kayvon Wallace in the thinnest of pencils as a fourth guy, but that him getting cut made my decision easier because obviously he's not on the team anymore. But this is the number one position for me where they got to find somebody, just for they need help at safety along with wide receiver. So I'm fairly convinced they're going to pick up somebody. There's going to be someone shaking loose, like you said.
And then the last 3 are very easy: Casey Kreider, Graham Gano, and Jamie Gillen. I don't think you're picking Jude McAtamy, right?
No.
I mean that. I will say this though. I know Gano had the 3 field goals of 50 plus. One of them did hit the upright, whatever. But again, this is one of the exception. This is the veteran exception, I will say, where I wish that they didn't give him the summer basically off. I know that they see him in practice and whatever, but the game is different. Kickers are like, I mean, this is probably bad math, and I'm sure a kicker would disagree with me, but I think that confidence is a higher percentage than any other position. If it's 60% ability and 40% confidence, I don't think there's another position in football that has a closer ratio than that. That's and so give him the consistency. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool that he made those 3. They're all far away. Like, can he make chip shots? Because he missed chip shots last year, and I know he was injured, but I don't know. I think you have a. Yeah, I mean, this was the one-off season thing that pissed me off. They didn't bring in real competition for him, and I think the one competition they do have is this IPP player who is completely safe. He's roster exempt this year, and he's looked good. And even that wasn't a real competition. Even though he's got this roster designation that is going to have him not count against the roster, so it doesn't even feel like a real competition. They didn't even treat that like a real competition, and that pisses me off because. There are kickers being signed to the UFL that are just as good, if not better, than Graham Gano in terms of range, and it comes down to consistency and stuff like that. And you have a guy who's getting old, coming off of injury, and coming off the worst year of his career, and he is expensive, and you have a cap problem. So, I'm going with that. I think it's the clear answer. I'm just annoyed that they didn't really try anything else.
I kind of feel like kickers sort of grow on trees though too. If you need a kicker, they're out there, you can grab it. Like you said, even you get a UFL guy who's the best kicker in that league, you can grab him and they can do the job too. Let me ask you something though. So week 4, pulls a hamstring and he's out for 8 weeks or whatever. Are we gonna go in the open market and look for another kicker, or are we gonna bring in
Jude McAtamy? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'll tell you what we're not going to do is use Jamie Gillen again.
No, negative.
Uh, th- yeah, I mean, if this didn't mathematically literally cause them to lose a game last year against a division rival, I would be less heated about this. But the perfect storm of events literally already happened to them, and it's one of those things. I mean, you can apply it to anything in life. You know what I mean? Always check your mirrors when you're turning. Oh, yeah, but this is my street. I'm pulling into my driveway, whatever. And then you hit a cyclist, and you're like, oh my god, now I have to pay $50,000 in legal fees and medical fees. Just check your fucking mirror next time. That's like a lesson you just learned. Like I learned the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What's the line from My Cousin Vinny? You replacing a carburetor or whatever, and the jet rolls down the thing, you're fucked or whatever he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they literally learned the hard way, and it appears they learned nothing because they didn't really. Again, I'm okay with going with Graham Gano. It's just that you didn't really even test him that hard. I don't know.
Unless they just feel like I do, where like we'll just grab another guy if we have to. Like what, he's our starter but if we have to replace him, it's not like trying to find a left tackle. A kicker's kind of.
Well, of course not. But again, this is a guy who showed up on the injury report the day of, so they didn't have.
I'm talking about. That's their mindset now going forward. Is I think they just grow on trees, and they'll just get another one. So they're not gonna go through the whole thing of a kicking competition. It's like he's our guy. Again, the money pays into a little bit also, but he's our guy. We're going with him. There's nominal competition with a guy who's protected, but in all honesty, there really isn't. And if for some reason he's awful or hurt again, we'll just pluck somebody and away we go.
All right. Yeah. And that's
it. Agreeing with him.
No, I'm with you. I get it. But that's it. Those are our 53 guy rosters. We're remarkably close in a lot of ways to
very close defensively.
Yeah, defensively. Offense, where did we have I guess we were different at every single position on offense.
Yeah, because I was really looking at this a little differently than you were too.
But again, they were all things I considered. Everything that you went with was things that like was not completely out of left field or like a total disagreement. It was just like, yeah, I could see that. I thought about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So next time we would talk, we'll be at South of the Border, on the Giants Nation show. So be sure to check that out. I think that's going to be a live show, right?
That will be live at 6:00. We will promote with the link for when it's going out on all of our feeds and everything. But subscribe over to Giants Nation as well, because they'll be, that's the official place for it. But this might be the most excited I've ever been for a podcast we're doing on Thursday. I can't wait to get in the car on Thursday morning and drive, the 551 miles to get to Dillon, South Carolina. You can see the beer, the mustache is ready to go. By the time we record on Friday, it will be, I'll be in full Pedro mode. A lot of you people don't even know what South of the Border is. We're going to give you the whole story behind it. We're going to have a lot of fun and games. And, this is an awesome idea. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. So I think also if you're in the area, you live somewhere around there, and you got nothing going on for your Labor Day weekend. Wait, it's not Thursday. It's Friday. You're leaving Thursday. The show is Friday. Yeah, I don't want to. I'm going to make sure everybody has the right information. It'll be Friday at 6.
I am driving down Thursday. I'm spending Thursday night and Friday night at the South of the Border Motel. So I want the full experience.
Yeah.
But the show will be Friday at 6 p.m.
Yeah. And then after that, we just have our previews. It's the week before,
We'll save our official predictions for the season for next week, or are you going to announce yours on Giants Nation? What's your plan?
I don't know. That didn't come up for Giants Nation. I don't know if that's going to happen, but for this show, we can do 2 episodes. So we'll do like maybe just like a quick one, like a reevaluation post preseason, with the 53-man roster now shaken out across the league, not just us, but across the league, the rosters have now shaken out and trades have been made and stuff. And we can reevaluate our season predictions, and then we'll do our standard. How do you feel? You feel excited about that?
About the Commanders? Yes, because during our pencils and pens, I predicted an upset of us beating the Commanders. And my rationale is there's always a big upset in week one where, 76% of the survival pool takes one team. They're all taking that hip pick and that team loses.
We
And
could be that mistake.
I just have a hunch that we're the mistake. The one that gets slips past the goalie, that one, we beat them. So I am, little preview for our preview prediction show. I'm picking us to beat Washington in Washington.
Yeah.
I'll explain why in our preview show, but I'm sticking with that.
All right, everyone. So we will see you then. Be sure to follow Giants Nation Show for that South of the Border episode. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then next week, 2 Just Giants episodes, a quick little prediction episode, and then our preview episode. Until then, let's go Giants.
Go Giants.